Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take these incredibly dense sources, ancient texts, modern analysis, and really just distill them down into the insights you need.
And today we are going into a big one, Valmiki's Yoga Vasistha, specifically chapters 6 through 10.
Right. And these chapters, they set the stage for everything that follows. It looks like a simple family drama, a king, a prince, a promise.
But it's actually this brilliant spiritual allegory. We're about to see this collision of duty, deep human attachment, and a prince's completely unexpected and frankly, radical existential crisis.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is to really analyze how this intense, emotional, and moral dilemma, it functions as a roadmap for the internal spiritual journey for any seeker.
It really shows us the necessary and often painful steps toward freedom.
So to get the dilemma, we have to start with the entrance of the sage, Vishwamitra, at King Dasharatha's court. And the sources are so clear, this isn't just some old man walking in.
Oh no. He's described as radioactive, majestic, bright as the morning sun, almost like the sun itself just descended into the throne room.
And King Dasharatha is just completely floored. He sees this visit as this monumental honor.
He uses these amazing phrases like, it's rainfall after a drought, or finding a treasure in a dream. And his reverence, it leads him straight into, a profound political era.
The unconditional vow.
Exactly. He binds himself completely, before he even knows what the ask is.
He says, if you ask, there is nothing I will keep from you. I solemnly state that I will execute your request to the last item. He's basically signing a blank check based on his commitment to truth and dharma.
But here's the thing. Why is that vow so binding? I mean, he's the king. Doesn't a king have the right to revoke a promise if the request is, insane?
In this framework, no. The king's word is the foundation of his power, of his merit. To go back on it would be to destroy his very identity as a righteous ruler.
So it's an irreversible moral commitment, which is exactly why Vishwamitra, who's a master strategist, demands it up front. The stakes are immediately sky high, both political and spiritual.
And once the king is locked in, Vishwamitra drops the bomb.
He explains that his sacred rites, his sadhana, are being sabotaged, desecrated really, by horrible Rakshasa demons who are flinging heaps of flesh and blood onto the holy ground.
It's just a horrifying image, and he asks not for the king's army, not for his best generals.
No, he asks for Rama, the king's eldest son.
Who's just a kid. He's 15 years old. He should be, in school, not fighting literal demons.
The request is absurd on its face, but Vishwamitra insists. He says, no man other than Rama can make bold to fight with the Rakshasas.
So he's saying only this one specific teenager can do the job.
Right. And he argues that under his protection, Rama will be elevated. He'll gain an infinity of good services. Allegorically, it's the demand of the spiritual path itself, isn't it? Sacrifice your most cherished attachment for the sake of your highest potential.
And that demand it instantly shatters the king's entire worldview. He goes from being this dutiful sovereign to just a panicked father.
He's completely paralyzed by what the text calls moha, that primal attachment.
So he starts throwing out every argument he can think of. He says Rama's too young, not well trained in arms.
He even says Rama only knows how to walk about in the gardens. It's such a fatherly thing to say. Then he offers this desperate compromise. He says, look, I'll go. I'll take my entire legion of soldiers and fight in his place.
But his deepest argument, the one that feels so relatable, is the parental one. He basically frames his refusal as a law of nature.
He does. He says men will sacrifice anything, their lives, their wealth, even their wives, but they can never sacrifice their children.
That's the human emotional brain just screaming. His love for his son is completely overriding his promise, his duty, his reason.
And he's also just terrified. He knows who they'd be up against. He mentions Ravana by name and says, we're no match for such foes. He sees this as a guaranteed death sentence for his son.
So you've got the king's promise on one side, his whole identity as a ruler, and on the other, this primal protective love.
And Vishwamitra sees that emotional clinging, not as love, but as betrayal.
He gets angry.
Highly incensed is the phrase used. The earth literally trembles. And he delivers this just searing rebuke to the king. He says that breaking a vow is unbecoming of his lineage. And it's like behaving like a deer after having been a lion.
Wow. So isn't Vishwamitra basically just weaponizing shame here, using the king's fear of breaking dharma to overcome his fear of losing his son. Is that wisdom or is it just manipulation?
I think it's higher wisdom expressed through strategic necessity. He knows the king is stuck, he's paralyzed. So he uses the force of dharma, this impersonal universal law, to just blast through the king's personal emotional attachment. The goal isn't to shame him, it's to force him to operate at the level of a king again, not just a father.
But that anger, that rebuke, it leaves the king completely frozen. He's in this impossible bind. How does he get out of it?
This is where Vasistha comes in, the great court sage. He's the voice of objectivity, of what the text calls buddhi, or higher intellect.
So if Dasharatha is the emotional brain just panicking,
Then Vasistha is the executive function, the higher consciousness that can see the long-term truth. He steps in to calm the king, and his counsel is purely about dharma. He says, preserve your virtue and think not to break your promise.
okay, but that's easy for him to say. He's not the one sending his son off to die.
Right, and what's fascinating here is that Vasistha doesn't just preach. He offers a new perspective. He completely reframes the situation.
How so?
He assures Dasharatha that sending Rama isn't a sacrifice, it's a blessing. He explains that Vishwamitra is the personification of virtue and is a master of all these powerful celestial weapons. Under his guidance, Rama will be safe. He says even death itself cannot touch him.
So the wisdom figure convinces the emotional father that what looks like certain death is actually the fast track to invincibility. It's a total shift in frame.
Yes, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, Vasistha is our inner navigator. Dasharatha, the human heart, just sees the storm right in front of him, the fear of loss. But Vasistha, the higher intellect, sees the whole map. He knows that turning back and breaking the promise destroys the king's merit, but moving through the danger with integrity, that ensures the soul's evolution.
And just as the king is trying to process all this, attendants arrive with news about Rama himself, and it sort of puts this whole dilemma in a new light.
A completely new light. They say the prince is suffering from a profound melancholy.
And this is a really key distinction, right? This isn't just sadness or what we call depression.
Not at all. This is the spiritual insight known as Vairagya, profound dispassion. He's suffering because he's seeing reality too clearly. The awakening has started, and it hurts.
The physical signs are pretty alarming. They say he's lean and pale as the withering lotus, he's silent, he refuses to eat or bathe with any kind of relish.
He's literally fading away from the world. And mentally, he is just completely disengaged from everything society values. He rejects royal jewelry, looking at it like it's just junk. He rejects the company of women, seeing them not with judgment, but just as a cause of destruction, a distraction.
That detail about him smiling when they talk about him becoming emperor, that's huge.
It's insane for a crown prince. He genuinely doesn't care about the throne. He seeks out solitude in remotest areas. He's acting like a wandering monk.
So what's at the core of this? What's he realized?
His core conviction is the dawning realization of Maya, of illusion. He says, the world which appears to our view is a vanity and unreal. He sees the futility of it all.
He compares reality to an ethereal lake.
Exactly. An imaginary lake with an imaginary lotus in it. Because he sees the illusion, the world holds no more attraction for him, and that's the source of his distress.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, this whole external drama, it's just a mirror for the internal battle that's already happening inside Rama.
Absolutely. The Rakshasas, the demons, they aren't just external monsters. The text is very clear that they represent internal obstacles.
Ignorance, ego, sensory distraction.
All of it. Anger, greed, self-doubt. They're the inner forces that disrupt our spiritual practice, our sadhana.
So when Vishwamitra demands that Rama protect the sacrifice, it's an allegory. It's higher wisdom demanding that the seeker summon our own energy of detachment to fight the inner vices that disrupt our focus.
Precisely. Rama is the seeker, the Janani. And his melancholy, as the Vairagya, is the necessary prep work. You can't successfully fight the forces of ignorance until you first become radically detached from the world they promise you. Pleasure, power, status. His conflict has to be existential first before it can be martial.
And the king and the sages, they represent parts of our own psychology.
Totally. Dasharatha is the human heart, the emotional brain. It's fearful. It's bound by personal love. It's always saying, I can't live for a moment separated from my comfort.
And Vasistha is the higher intellect, the buddhi. It steps in to make sure the heart's immediate panic doesn't destroy the soul's long-term evolution. The heart wants safety. Wisdom demands growth.
Right. It demands alignment with Dharma.
This all brings us to the core tension that the text is trying to resolve here. How do you reconcile the intense engagement you need to honor your promises, to do your duty, with the radical emptiness implied by detaching from outcomes, which is what Rama is feeling.
This is the great paradox. And the solution is action without attachment. True freedom, the text says, lies in seeing the world as it is, acting rightly within it, but never ever being bound by it.
So you still have to perform the action. Dasharatha still has to send Rama, but your internal mindset has to be that the outcome, the battlefield, the result, it's all transient. It's ultimately unreal.
Think of it like an actor in a play, an actor playing a CEO in a high-stakes financial crisis movie. The actor has to perform that role with absolute intensity. He has to sweat, shout, feel the pressure. That's his dharma, his duty to the script.
But he remains free. He doesn't actually go bankrupt when the company in the movie does.
Exactly. He doesn't suffer because he knows the play isn't reality. He can play the role of the king or the prince or the CEO perfectly, but he never forgets the nature of the stage. And that radical detachment is what transforms Rama from a melancholic prince into a hero.
That brings us to our takeaways. So first, the Yoga Vasistha frames our spiritual journey as a war against our own internal obstacles, our ignorance, our ego, the rakshasas within.
Second, true guidance,
Yeah.
embodied by Vasistha, it gives us objectivity. It sees potential and destiny where our fearful, attached self only sees danger and loss.
And finally, Rama's melancholy is actually spiritual insight. It's Vairagya. That realization that worldly pleasures are futile is the crucial first step. It has to come before any real battle for self-mastery.
And this raises an important question for you listening. The core dilemma for King Dasharatha was this. Should he protect the uncut diamond Rama in the safe of his attachment? Or should he risk the violence of the cutter's tools, Vishwamitra, in the battle, so the diamond could fulfill its true purpose and shine?
So the question becomes,
If your deepest attachments are keeping you from realizing your highest potential, which promise is ultimately the one you must honor, the promise of comfort or the promise of true self-fulfillment?
something profound to consider until our next dive. Thank you for joining us.